Hey, this is Lonzo, the Godfather of West Coast Hip Hop. And today I'm changing hats, folks. I'm a reporter for the Compton Entertainment Channel. And we are live right here on our podcast, The Compton Chronicles. And today we are featuring part 2 of our conversation with Compton historian, my good friend from the 125 Society, 125 Historical Society, and more, Mr. Robert Johnson. What's up, Mr. Robert Johnson?
Hey, how you doing?
Man, you know what? Like I said, tell all the homies, I'm just hanging like a chandelier trying to shine. That's an old man game. Yeah, you know, we rolling with the duckies and they're kicking like a ducky. Okay, so yeah, I got me some old man sayings too. Hey, Doc, we had a great conversation a couple of weeks ago, and you're so rich with history. We can do this endlessly, but today we're gonna go into another part of the history of Compton from the suppression part. That's the part that I'm really interested in. So I'm gonna shut my ass up and let you do the talking. You got it.
Well, you know, we were talking about a lot of history, and people will always say, "Well, how come I don't know that?" You know, you talk to a lot of people who actually live in the city of Compton, grew up in Compton, they don't realize the rich history, especially the Black history. Because I'm talking about just history altogether, because of course Compton was at the tip of the spear. Things like, the first international air meet in the United States happened right here at Dominguez Hills in 1910.
Okay.
So you have history. You have the city actually being the first white city in the area. And what does that mean? Okay. Compton was an agricultural dynamo. So, if you don't know that background of the city, then you don't understand why Black people were attracted to Compton in the first place. Compton had excellent schools, excellent homes. There were places you could move to. Like, I given it, for instance, for the home I grew up in. Okay, I grew up over in Treetop, 400 block of Cedar Street.
Okay,
all of those homes right in that area were built in 1947. Okay. My family, we moved from Watts to Compton in 1961.
Okay.
So all those houses were fairly new.
Okay.
So you had that new housing stock. And that was something that, because of racial covenants and redlining, Black people didn't have the opportunity to do in Southern California.
Okay.
So that was the first, that was the end of racial covenants. And we were able to start moving, and we moved south from Watts, Willowbrook into Compton in the late 50s, early 60s. And of course, we elected the first Black mayor of a major municipality west of the Mississippi. Okay.
Mayor Dollarhide, correct?
In Douglas Dollarhide.
Okay.
His father had been enslaved.
Wow.
So here you go. You have the son of a man who had been enslaved, who becomes the first Black mayor of a major city on the West Coast, and that's not celebrated,
right?
And I'm gonna get to why in a minute, because we're dealing with today, as you opened up with, we're going to deal with suppression of Black history in particular. Okay, so here we have all this beautiful history. We have, Dollarhide becomes the first Black mayor, and here's the difference with just being a Black mayor, because some of the other cities in the South Bay over the years, they've had Black mayors. Los Angeles had Mayor Bradley. So what was the difference in Compton?
Okay.
Well, the difference, it was a huge difference, because when Douglas Dollarhide walked in as mayor in 1969, he had a majority Black city council. None of those other guys who came after him could say that. Okay. I mean, look at Los Angeles. Bradley becomes mayor 4 years later, but there's only 2 or 3 Black city councilmen.
Okay.
15 districts. So, and like I said, Dollarhide not only had a majority Black city council, but also a school board. Okay. I think we had talked about in the last session, when I was at Compton High School, even at Davis Junior High School, but definitely at Compton, every morning, you did the Pledge of Allegiance and everything, but you also sang "Lift Every Voice and Sing." Aaron Wade would get on the speaker, and he would celebrate all of the seniors who had gotten scholarships to different colleges. It was the mentality was to bring up the youth. Okay. A lot of locations didn't get that. Okay. There were a lot of places that did not get that. This was special to Compton. We had in the 60s, especially in the later part of the 60s, Compton had an influx of Black teachers that were coming up from the historically Black colleges and universities, and many of them had been activists, and they were fresh off the civil rights battlefield.
Okay.
And they came into our schools, and we as students received, the richness of their education. And I'm not talking about just at school, the richness of their experience. Okay. How you always hear people say, oh, they not enough Black male teachers, that we didn't have that problem. All right. Mr. Brown, Mr. Green. They were just, we had Black male representation, junior high and high school. Okay. And that was because of what was taking place in Compton. Compton was becoming a progressive Black space that a lot of middle-class families wanted to participate in. That's why so many of the families that moved to Compton, you had, of course, you had the veterans coming, but you had a lot of people who were involved with aerospace, for instance.
Right.
You had longshoremen come in. You had people who had they were a solid middle-class background. All right. Matter of fact, you talk to some of these gangsters who had, I'm talking about the original gangsters who first broke out, talking about in the 70s.
Right.
The majority of them who you talk to, they came from two-parent homes, and they came from homes where the parents owned the home.
Right.
For the most part. And that is different from where you see in other areas. All right. Omar Bradley talks about how some of the gang situation was a reaction, and he has a whole theory on that I think some people need to look at. But anyway, what I'm saying is from the time when you first began to have Black political power in Compton, there were those people who wanted to suppress that power.
Okay.
All right. There's
Why?
A reason why.
Why? That's my next question. Why?
Well, think about this. What was going on in 1969?
Black Panthers,
to mind.
all that. Black Panthers, Black revolutionaries. Music was totally different. A whole lot was going on back in 1969.
Yeah. That music was telling people that basically to make a change, right?
Right.
For the most part. Okay. There was a culture on the street of political activism. We want to say it was starting to develop a revolutionary culture. All right. And the opposition, okay, the people who were opposed to our progress knew they had to change the culture on the street.
Right.
They do that. Well, one way to do that, of course, is through the media. And I want you to think about this. All of a sudden, in the early 70s, the late 60s, did you ever see the movie The Learning Tree?
Yeah, but I saw it a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't see it, don't come back on TV and stuff like that. This was a movie that was very impactful. Okay. Gordon Parks was the maker of that film. Okay. There was no shootings, no prostitution. Nobody sold drugs in that movie, but that movie was a hit.
I'm about to watch it now. You messed up. Go ahead.
Yeah, look at that. Okay.
Check it out.
But what we ended up getting was a wave of what? Shaft, Superfly,
Yeah,
Black
Charlie.
Caesar.
Yeah.
Okay. And what basically the majority of these movies glorified street hustling, dope dealing,
Oh,
prostitution.
right.
Okay. I mean, it put a shine on it. And this is coming from a generation that didn't have representation on television that was positive.
At all. Yeah.
Exactly. You
Right.
know, you had the step and fetch it type of character for the most part. And so they changed that. Instead of changing that to something uplifting, they decided to put the spotlight on the criminal element.
Hmm.
Because one of the things, the jacket they were trying to put on the civil rights workers and those people who were active in the community, they wanted to call you a gangster. You were just a criminal.
Hmm.
Okay. Even the NAACP was outlawed in some sections of the country.
What? I
All
never heard that
right.
before.
Oh man, look here. You know we'll talk about the Black Panther Party and the murders that the police did on the Black Panther Party, but I'm gonna tell you true. If you look at the people who were working with the NAACP,
Okay.
okay, from 1909 and registering people in the South, man, they were killing members of NAACP left and right.
Wow.
Okay, those brothers stood up. They weren't saying out front about self-defense. They did it out of necessity.
Hmm.
Matter of fact, Mr. NAACP, Mr. Hudson, Paul Hudson, uh, um, came out of he was an original member of the Niagara movement in 1909 with W.B. Du Bois. Okay,
Okay.
and Dr. Hudson um, originally goes back to Louisiana as an NAACP head,
Hmm.
but they ran the NAACP out of where he was. He had to come to Los Angeles,
Okay.
and that's how he gets involved with the L.A. chapter of the NAACP. He moves here, okay, from Louisiana because they were run out of town.
Hmm.
We when we look see we don't when we look at our history and we see that history of struggle,
Okay.
because we always, that the younger generation always thinks they just invented the wheel. Okay.
Right. Right.
Like we
Right.
just started this. All right. And black folks been struggling. You can go back to Frederick Douglass, okay, and before. But let's get to suppression of history. All right.
Okay.
What they don't teach you in school, if you don't learn it at home, you are not going to get it,
Okay.
because they're not trying to teach you to be free.
Okay.
They're trying to teach you how to become a cog in a society, okay, in an oppressive society.
Okay.
You all they want you to do is get up, go to work, or at least if you're not working, be in that that stockpile where they could use you as a scab if they need to break a union strike.
Hmm.
Okay, and I say that because in 1902, right after the turn of the last century, the Los Angeles census said there were about 2,000 uh, Black Americans, and I say that because you had Black Hispanics who were already living here.
Okay.
You had Black Americans they said there were about 2,000 in Los Angeles. There was a union strike. There was a strike of railroad workers, Mexican railroad workers. They were striking for better conditions and pay. The railroad went down and brought 2,000 Black people from the South to break the strike.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, this will tell you how we started off on Central Avenue. At that time, the railroad station was right there around 5th and Central.
Okay.
Okay. So, they had Union Pacific and all the Southern Pacific and all that in different areas. They didn't have Union Station yet. So when they brought Black people up to break the strike, well, they had to give them some place to live. So the railroad, when they had the right of way, I believe they had a mile on each side of the track. So they sold the strike breaking railroad workers. They sold them houses. They built a little house for them, and you had a house. You put $5 down, and you paid $5 a month.
Wow.
And that started. This is a turn of the last. I'm talking about like 1902, 1903. Okay.
Right.
So this starts the Black community on Central Avenue. Okay, the railroad workers. All right. And so we start off at like 5th and Central. We moved down to around 10th and Central, more into there was a little Black business district.
Okay.
We have we have a church down there. First AME opens a church. That was Bridget Biddy Mason's church. Okay. When they had a church site on Azusa Street off of Central. Okay. So what ends up happening is Black people are steady moving south on Central. Okay, we get to 10th and 11th Street. That's where you had the New Age newspaper. You had Charlotta Bass's newspaper. All those they were right around 10th and 11th Street.
Okay.
Now, for those of you on a religious tip, you guys turn on the TV and you watch all these preachers tell you how you should be living. The evangelicals, the Kenneth Copelands, the Hagins, these people, they all come out of this Pentecostal movement that was actually started by a one-eyed Black preacher named Reverend William Seymour.
Okay.
He had his church was on Azusa, and it was the site of the Azusa Street. What do they call it? The Azusa Street Revival. Okay. Supposedly miracles were taking place. People were, who were crippled were walking, blind were seeing. And I document his life in my book. I do a profile of him in Notable Southern Californians in Black History. Okay. So whenever you see one of these Pentecostal cats, realize that their whole thing came from a one-eyed Black preacher named William Seymour.
All right, stop right there. Let them know where we are. You're live with Lonzo and my man Robert Johnson. We're talking about Compton history, folks. Part 2 with my man Robert Johnson, a living, walking Compton library. I got to do a station ID. Go right ahead. You're live with the Compton Entertainment Channel. Go ahead, Robert.
Okay, so the community's moving south on Central Avenue. All right. So during 1906, 1908, we right around there around Azusa. We continue to move south. Think about by the time it's like around the late 20s, we're at Vernon and Central.
Oh shit. We're moving down.
Okay.
Moving on up.
So think about Club Alabama. Think about the Dunbar Hotel, which was originally the Somerset Hotel. Those were people who built it. 1928, the NAACP has its first West Coast conference here in Los Angeles at the Dunbar Hotel.
Okay.
All right. And that puts that local NAACP chapter under the spotlight. They actually did a play at the Hollywood Bowl. So they were organizing to desegregate the city, and there were several people who were involved who were moving towards trying to get away from segregation in housing. They were challenging the restrictive covenants. Okay. And here's the thing, and so you really have to give it to the bravery of these people, because when they challenged the restrictive covenants, the person who moved into the home had to call the NAACP for help. Okay.
Okay.
NAACP would come in and they would bring it to court. Now the problem is, or was, if you lost, not only did you lose the house, your down payment and all that, but the person who sold you the house also lost ownership. It went to
Mm.
whoever was before that person.
Huh?
Okay. Yeah. That was a tough pill to swallow. So you have to realize these people put everything on the line. And at first they lost off, and it took over 20 years before we got a favorable ruling on restrictive covenants. It wasn't until the 1940s, talking about 1948, when restrictive covenants were ruled unenforceable and then unconstitutional in the early 1950s. All
Exactly.
right,
What
but for
is
years,
hold on? What is restrictive covenants?
restrictive covenant is when you buy a house and in the deed, and some people, depending on which section of the city you live in, you go look at your deed.
Okay.
Okay, have them do a deed lookup, and in some of the deeds they will have language that says you cannot sell this property to, or you cannot rent it or let it out to anyone other than someone of the Caucasian race.
What? Okay. Okay.
And then it specifies the punishments if you do that.
Mm.
Okay, so they would do that. That was basically, um, as my grandfather say, James Crow Esquire practiced segregation.
Mm.
He didn't put up no sign.
Okay.
Okay, it was in your deed.
Right.
So that's what kept people in certain areas, like right around Central, or in a small area out there in Santa Monica,
Okay.
Oaks at Oakwood, or in a small area over here in Pico Union, where they might not have had those restrictive covenants.
Okay.
Okay, this is why. Just to digress for a second for you, in the 20s there was a brother named Dr. Gordon, and he saw that there was some land that was just open, okay, right over here off of Crenshaw and Redondo Beach Boulevard,
Okay.
okay, which wasn't there then. It was just an open field that belonged to the Dominguez family, and they talked to them, and what he wanted to do was to build um, a black community right there in that area. He had like three levels of house. He had like a high end housing, middle houses, and more, and then some more low income housing.
Okay.
But it was heavier on the more affluent housing. Anyway, and when I talk about that, I think this is in the 20s, and they were saying the houses were like $3,500 or something.
Wow.
Okay, but you kind of think of what wages were back then too,
Right.
so
Right.
it's
Right.
crazy. So Dr. Gordon was a principal with Lincoln Savings and Loan. That was a black savings and loan. And he was smart enough as a financier to syndicate this project with white financial institutions.
Okay.
Okay. So he was very well capitalized. He had the money. He got architects. They designed the houses. This is in the 20s. They were putting in the sewer system and the whole bit. And at the same time, right about that time, they were building, and it still stands today, oil refinery right there on Crenshaw.
Okay.
Okay. I think it's
Oh, Crenshaw.
called the Torrance.
Yeah, about 190.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. They were building that refinery there. Okay. And so where Dr. Gordon, he was north of the refinery. Okay, Palos Verdes is south of where the refinery is.
Right.
But the white folks who were living in Palos Verdes got wind that there was going to be a black community there, and they said no fucking way. Okay, Henry O'Melveny, who had just become famous. He was a lawyer who just became famous because he defended Doheny, an oil baron based in Los Angeles, during the Teapot Dome scandal.
Okay.
Matter of fact, everybody kind of praised Henry O'Melveny because Doheny should have went to prison. Okay, His partner went, but he just had the wrong lawyer.
Mm.
So Henry O'Melveny, now that firm represents the city of Los Angeles, and it's a worldwide, world-renowned law firm. Okay.
Okay.
O'Melveny and Myers. Henry O'Melveny, the principal, he saw that, and there was a group of people, the Olmsted brothers and others, who just said those Negroes are just too damn close. So they put political pressure on the board of supervisors, because this land was county land. It wasn't in the city, okay, because there was no city.
Okay.
So they leaned on the board of supervisors to kill the project. Eminent domain. Very similar to what you saw at Bruce's Beach.
Right,
okay?
Right.
They couldn't scare you out, so then they get the city to condemn your land. But the problem was Dr. Gordon also had white financiers involved. So they couldn't just put an end to it and just kick them off. They had everybody got their investment back. Okay. They just said, you're not going to build a community here.
Okay.
Now, we know that community today as Alondra Park and El Camino College.
Wow. Wow.
Now, they said, because when they condemned it, they said, we're going to build a park. This is the 20s. Alondra Park wasn't built till the 50s. Same thing with El Camino College. All right.
Okay.
So think about that, because believe me, that wasn't the only time that stuff like that happened. So you had a concerted effort for people who wanted to make sure that Black people were not able to own property and build generational wealth. They weren't going to let you have your own community. You see, when we say, oh, we look at these other people, oh, well, look at the Japanese, look at the Italian, look at these people. Well, yes, look at them. They were able to buy land or whatever, or at least buy within their community. But this is what was happening with us. This is why the Black experience is different.
Okay.
And this is why we have to know these types of histories. Because that wasn't the only place. There were other places. Dr. Allison Jefferson has a book out on Black leisure during Jim Crow, where she talks about, people who just like the Bruces did, try to set up a place where Black people could go just to relax, and how they had to fight for every inch of dirt. And sometimes lost it. During that same period of time, the 1920s, there was a group of Black investors who were trying to open up a beach club in Huntington Beach. Okay. It was going to be a beach club with a market, a restaurant. You could change and go on the beach, stuff like that. And you got to remember, there was no Huntington Beach. There was no city. Okay. Fortunately, there was a community of people who had moved from the South, okay, and they had left the South, fleeing. There was a boll weevil cotton epidemic after the turn of the century. So there a lot of Southerners, especially those in cotton-producing states, left and came to California.
Okay.
So there was a whole community of these folks, and they looked up and they saw that Black people, okay, middle-class Black people at that, all right, they're not used to Black folks riding up in cars and carrying on, were investing in a beach club, all right, where they could bring their friends and go to the beach. So the day before it was to open, it was mysteriously burnt down.
Wow.
So again, we don't know this history.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
These are not the things they tell us. So when you don't know these things, you start wondering, well, what were my ancestors doing in the light of all this? White folks just told them to shut up and sit down, and that's what they did. And that is far from the truth. Okay?
Interesting.
we don't celebrate Betty Hill. You know, Betty Hill, man. Betty Hill's her husband was really interesting. He was a Buffalo Soldier and everything, but after he retired and they came to Los Angeles, she got involved with the NAACP and the Urban League. She's the one who fought for desegregation of the county hospitals. She also fought for desegregation. It was the whole NAACP thing, but she was leading the move to desegregate the beaches and the swimming pools. Okay, that was Betty Hill. Why don't we all know Betty Hill? Okay, there's a senior citizen center over on 35th named after her. Councilman Bob Farrell had dedicated that to her. Okay. But how come we all don't know her name? Excuse me for a second.
I'm mad.
Anyway, the swimming pool over there at what used to be what's the name of the park on 103rd and Central?
Oh, Will Rogers.
Ted Watkins. Yeah.
Okay.
Now they call it Ted Watkins. I'm trying to think of the new name. Ted Watkins. Okay. You know that swimming pool there, right?
Yeah.
They put that swimming pool in. That was Betty Hill that got that swimming pool put there. Okay. That Olympic-sized pool would not be in Watts if it wasn't for her. So, see, they pick our heroes. We have heroes that we don't even know are heroes, sheroes that are out there. Okay? Because these things they're not taught. You have people who, when we look at somebody like a DeSantis and Governor DeSantis over here in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay? But here's the thing they don't say. They didn't start teaching Black history in schools in Florida until 1996.
Huh?
Yeah. All right. They weren't teaching Black history in schools in Florida until they passed a bill to do so in 1996.
So now the history they do teach, they want to put an NDA on it. You can't talk about nothing derogatory towards the people that was inflicting pain and oppression on other folks. You want to turn it into, we learned something from slavery? Man, get out of here with that, boy.
Well,
I've been following that, man. That's crazy.
Well, I want you to remember this, and you could go back in the late 70s and you listen to some of these Klansmen like George Pepper out here and Metzger, all these Klansmen out here. They kept saying one thing. They said, we're gonna take off the hoods and the robes and we're gonna put on 3-piece suits and we'll just participate in the Republican Party. And they never lied, did they?
Nope.
The same, what you're hearing now, especially from people like DeSantis, and it's not just him. Okay, he's just the figurehead for this. It's everything that the Klan was talking about.
Okay,
put an end to affirmative action, put an end to Black studies. What did DeSantis say? Black history was not relevant. Okay, I mean, is that not straight from the Klan or what?
That's from the Klan book, the Klan Bible.
So what happens to a people who don't know their history?
They're like a kite with no tail. They go anywhere.
Thank you. And then you got to rely on your opposition to tell you who you are. That is not a good mix. And you wonder why people look at the youth and go, why are the youth confused? Look at the youth are rebelling because they know something's wrong. All right. All right. If you telling me you free, we all supposed to be free, but you can't walk down the street without some cop punching your mother in the face.
Right.
Okay. Where do you see that? Or getting gunned down for whatever. So we're looking at the big lie, and the big lie for some people, especially some of the youth, doesn't make any sense anymore. Because their natural experience is telling them different.
Hold on.
So
Hey,
what
Robert,
happened?
hold on 1 second there, Robert.
Yeah,
I got about 3 or
yeah.
4. I'm looking at my screen. I got about 3 people right now on this live with us. If anybody wants to ask Robert a question, you can call and talk to him through this line. Give me a call at 424-256-9211. 424-256-9211. You can ask Robert a question live right here on this show, folks. That's how we do it. We got high technology over here. Robert, go ahead.
Check that out. I love technology, boy. Put technology in the right hands
Can be
goes
dangerous.
far.
Woo-woo.
Okay. Technology in the wrong hands, man, makes you nervous because
Makes you real nervous.
these fools are they are not about freedom. Now check this out. And the reason I'm saying about suppression is because if you look what happened in 1969, COINTELPRO, the attacks on Black Panther Party, just how the country was, and then now you have this city that's now led by Black people.
Okay.
Now, what do you think that the reaction from the opposition is to that?
Can't let it happen.
Exactly. They cannot let it be successful. So you look at the LA Times when Dollarhide won, it said Dollarhide wins, Negro, this was the headline, Negro experiment in self-governance. Okay. The unsaid thing was, Negroes, y'all can't govern yourselves. You need a white man to do it. That was the unsaid part. But the headline was Negro experiment in self-government. And they weren't rooting for the Negroes. Okay, because the white supremacist narrative is that Black people can't run nothing but their mouths. Okay. And if you do try, you have to fail. Now, for those of us who lived in Compton pre-1969, 1970, if you remember what the news was like, you never heard anything about Compton in the news.
Okay.
Okay. We had our own local newspaper, and even the Herald American used to leave out. That was the problem with the Herald American. On the society page, they'd leave Black people out. Period. That's why Ray Watkins came up with the bulletin. Okay. To start reporting on the Black community. The idea was Compton had to fail. And if it didn't fail, it had to have the perception of failure. Okay. So think about this. The Black mayor, you have a Black city council and a Black school board. All right. Well, the first thing that happens, man, is you have the 68-69 Compton High School basketball team.
Undefeated.
66 wins, no losses.
Wow.
Okay.
What year was that again? 68, 69?
68, 69.
Okay. 66 and 0.
Actually, Dr. Hopwood did a documentary that I believe is on YouTube on that very subject. Okay. Dr. Hopwood was one of the members of that basketball team.
Hopwood. Okay.
And it is excellent. In other words, there was just a start, but a lot of Black excellence starts coming out of Compton.
Okay.
Well, that goes against the white supremacist narrative.
It goes against the plan, that Doc.
It's not supposed to work. All right. Now here's the thing. This is 1969, 1970. In 1933, Compton had a devastating earthquake. 1933 earthquake.
Okay.
Devastated Long Beach, Compton, surrounding area. I was just reading Kelvin Fowler. Kelvin Fowler's homeboy down the street.
He's one of my regular guests, Doc. I got to get him back on the show too. I see you out there, Dr. Judge Fowler. Much love, Doc. Go ahead.
So anyway, if you think about it, the city had to rebuild the downtown area. Okay. And they did it, man. It happened so fast because downtown Compton was basically totally destroyed. Virtually all the schools in the city of Compton were destroyed in that earthquake.
Okay.
Okay. Compton Junior High School later becomes Roosevelt Junior High School. Was almost totally destroyed. Rosecrans Elementary, just all this. Compton High School was virtually destroyed.
Okay.
They rebuild it within 2-3 years. Basically, everything, the downtown gets rebuilt. What they had done was they're pulling out, they do a bond. Okay.
Okay.
The bonds to rebuild the city.
Take your time.
Excuse me. Come due in the early 1970s.
Okay.
At the same time, you have white flight. So most small businesses are run by local people who live in the city.
Okay.
Okay. So when you have white flight, if they're business owners, they pick up and take their businesses with them.
Right.
Okay. So you're losing your sales tax. You're starting to lose your property tax because you have another phenomenon. Hold on. Boy, my throat's getting dry. You have another phenomenon. In the early 1960s, when a lot of black families were moving into Compton, there was this phenomenon known as Blockbuster. Okay. What blockbusting basically was selling by fear. You had a real estate agent who would go into the white community and he would say, look, the Negroes are coming. You're going to want to sell your house. You wait 6 months and I'm not going to be able to give you the price that I can give you today.
Okay.
So what I need you to do is go on and list your house with me now. Let's see what happens. Here you go. Press hard 5 copies. That real estate guy would go to the black community and he'd say, Mr. Williams, I have a willing seller for you. Come on by and come look at this house. Now, of course, Mr. Williams, he's selling that house to you at a higher price than ordinarily. Okay. So you're paying more. Then you get the bankers involved. So, Mr. Williams, this is probably your first purchase. So you're relying on this loan officer to tell you the best thing, and he puts you in a predatory loan. He puts you in a loan. He puts you in a loan that has a balloon payment due in 10 years. Okay. So now he got you in easy, okay, because he put most of the money on 10 years. All right, where you have to refinance and figure out, what to do. But they're making money. Look, the real estate people made money hand over fist. The bankers made money hand over fist. They were all like fat rats in the cheese factory. Okay. So you saw whole neighborhoods, especially on the west side of Compton, whole neighborhoods went from majority white to majority black within a month's time. Can you imagine how that was freaking out the other white homeowners?
They got to go.
Okay. Because the only thing, most of them had never interacted with any black people.
Right.
All they know is what they saw on TV, and everything they see on TV was basically civil rights people getting hosed and beat with dogs and everything.
Right.
Okay. And anything else you saw on the news might have been maybe the Watch Rebellion, which scared the hell out of the rest of the white people who didn't leave earlier. So West Compton very quickly becomes majority black.
So tell us what West Compton is so everybody know.
So what West Compton basically from, I'll just say from like Avalon up to Willowbrook. Okay. Later that moves to Alameda, but at that time we'll say Willowbrook.
Okay.
All right. So we end up electing the first black city councilman in the early 1960s, in 1963.
Who was that?
Okay, Douglas Dollarhide.
Okay.
Douglas Dollarhide, a World War II veteran, like I said, son of a slave, and he's at the time he's working as manager of the Dodge dealership over on Long Beach and Palmer.
Okay.
Okay. He was actually our neighbor. He lived on Magnolia.
Okay.
A couple of blocks down from us.
Now let me put a pin right there for a second. That's the street when I was born in Compton. We lived on Magnolia.
Mm-hmm. 100 block.
Man, wherever it is, right there, right near Wilmington and Compton Boulevard, that area right over there.
Oh, okay, by Matt's Fish House and all that.
Okay, yep. That's where I was born at. 1957. Stayed there till I was about 5 years old. Then I moved over by Vanguard. Go ahead.
Okay, so Dollarhide, he's living over there. He's the people, like Judge Filer's father. All these people come out of the NAACP.
Okay.
Okay. Now I want you to think about what the NAACP was about at that time. Basically, they just wanted to be able to show that they were competent human beings and could run a city as well as anybody else. They weren't revolutionaries. They weren't trying to tear down any structure and rebuild them. Okay, at that time, they wanted to participate.
Okay.
Okay. They wanted it to be open. They wanted the field to be open to them, and they wanted to be able to show that they could do the job just as well as the white people who'd come in before them.
Okay.
All right.
Reasonable enough.
And that's what everybody, was thinking. Okay, this is a reasonable thing. Isn't this what America aspires for its, minorities to do?
Okay.
Okay, but the shoe don't fit. See, we just can't come in and just emulate what was there before. It doesn't fit. So some of those parts that didn't fit, people were doing different things with that. For instance, Compton was a Republican stronghold.
Mm.
Well, as black people come in, it becomes a Democratic stronghold.
Okay.
All right. Different fit. People started. We had things. We had in the 70s. There's a black arts explosion in Compton that you don't hear about today.
Never heard about it. My first time hearing about it.
Okay, the Compton Communicative Arts Academy.
Okay.
Most of the original artists that you hear about today, everybody from Betty Sarr on, had something to do with the Compton Communicative Arts Academy. The Pinckney brothers, all these artists basically came out of that movement. That they look here. I went to the Broad when they had the black art thing a few years ago,
mm-hmm.
and of course I'm looking to see, Compton.
Okay.
All right. And I'm sitting here looking, I'm going through all the spaces I want to see. I'm looking for something that says Compton Communicative Arts Academy. You know where I finally found something?
Where's that? It
was by the bathrooms. They had a wall that had a timeline.
Okay.
And it was about 3 or 4 sentences. Compton Communicative Arts Academy. Boom. And that was about it. And if you weren't looking for it, you weren't gonna find it. Okay.
Okay.
I was flabbergasted because everything they had in that building had been touched by the Communicative Arts Academy. If it was black and if it was in Los Angeles. But that was the acknowledgement.
Wow.
Yeah, virtually no acknowledgement. So you look at these things, Paul Robeson players, the actors who came out of that. You see, when we look at, and I know you're familiar because the whole rap game, the reason it came so strong out of Compton was because look what you had before it. Look who was there doing what. We had just in over at Dickinson Elementary School.
Okay.
We had the community lighted school. Judge Filer's mother, okay, Mrs. Filer and Mrs. Zarita, Dolores Zarita.
Okay.
They went to the Model Cities, which was a federal program.
Okay.
And they said, look, we need some activities for our youth. You know, Compton's a very young city.
Okay.
They said we need some activities for the youth after school. Okay. The first black police chief in California, first black police chief west of the Mississippi, Tom Cochet, who was appointed by Douglas Dollarhide.
Okay.
Okay. He was saying the same thing. He said we need to invest more in the kids because, you know, when they started talking about high crime in Compton, what they were really talking about was juvenile crime, burglaries in particular. Okay. That's when they said Compton high crime place. Yeah, it's because you had a bunch of kids because of the defunding of the city. When you lose your tax base, all right, when you lose your property tax and you start losing your sales tax. Because remember, I was telling you, you're
right.
In the early 70s when those balloon payments came due.
Right.
And I bet you probably remember this. Man, I remember I would go to school and my classmates would disappear. Just about every week, it'd be somebody else gone. Excuse me, and you were trying to figure out what's going on. Their families moved. Because those balloon payments came due. And if you remember the early 70s, it was high interest rates. It didn't make sense to try to refinance that balloon payment. It made more sense just to walk away from the property.
Was that Carter?
That
Carter.
Was
Nixon?
Excuse me, the late.
That Nixon.
The late, yeah, that was still Nixon.
Okay.
That was Nixon. That would be before Carter.
Okay.
You know, you had Nixon and Ford, but this is early 70s. Right. Okay. Nixon had remember Nixon comes up with phase 1 and phase 2.
Right.
Lamont Dozier saying about
phase 1. He got me on the run. Phase 2. What I'm gonna do?
Okay.
Tricky dick. Cut that. Woo. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So people, you know, we actually had the housing market in Compton collapse. Not in the whole region, in Compton. So we had a bunch of vacant homes in the early 70s. When you have vacant homes, ain't nobody paying property tax. Okay, what is your property tax pay for? Keeping your streets straight, your schools, your parks. Okay, police. All right, but your parks, your schools. Okay, you were in Compton where you knew when you went to the park, it was adult supervision. You came in there and you took out the caroms or you took out the basketball or whatever, but they were adults at the park.
Right. Kept down the BS.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what happens when the adults are gone?
They put
the kids are still coming to the park.
Right.
Okay.
Supervising.
And now the deal is, and you're in a era of high inflation and high interest rates. Jobs have been disappearing because this is when we start losing the manufacturing on Alameda.
Okay.
So what are these kids coming to do now? They still come out, but now they sitting up there and they scheming on, okay, how can I put some money in my pocket?
Okay.
Daytime burglars go up. Okay. At the same time, now you don't have money. You don't have that money to put into your schools like you used to.
Right.
So what's the first thing that disappears? First thing disappears is maintenance. Okay. Right. Next things like new books, stuff like that. All right. So how did we get from Compton, middle class, city, to Compton, now described as a ghetto? So this was the start of the slide. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So now you're dealing with a youthful city, but now the parks have become gathering places for groups of kids who later become gangs. Okay. Because think about it, most of the street clubs that you see that have been labeled gangs, they started off out of a certain park
Right.
where people used to go. Look, when I was a kid, man, and Judge Father and other people will tell you, see, we played baseball. We had little league.
Right.
So when I played baseball or we played football at a park or whatever, here's one of the things that happened. You were in a citywide league.
Okay.
So I got to meet all the other kids from other side of town.
Right.
Okay. Because I'm playing ball against you.
Right.
And then we end up spending basically the weekend together because we're playing baseball at Raymond Street Park.
Okay.
Okay. So not only do I get to know who you are, I see your family.
Right.
All right. We're interacting. So you can live on another side of Compton or whatever, but I know you because I play with you.
That was the same thing with the team post too.
Yes.
Team post would give people a chance to interact in different parks, different communities under adult supervision. They bring kids to dance, party, play ball, whatever they was doing. The team post broke up that segregation amongst the neighborhoods and allowed folks to interact.
Right. So now I'm not looking at somebody in this other neighborhood as my enemy.
Right. I know. I play ball.
Okay.
Make me cool. We all right.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. I know his mom was the team mom for their team.
Right.
Okay. They let our team come over and have hot dogs.
See what I'm saying? You can't shoot that kid right there. Yeah.
Yeah. You look
here.
I know that's all I got. One of my good friends was Joey Thomas, Joey Lyle Thomas, the Compton bartender. How did I meet him? I met him playing baseball.
Wow.
Him and his brother. That's how we became friends.
Wow.
Kelvin, he played in the same league. He just played on a different team. I was on the Red Sox.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? But we all played each other. We all kind of got to know each other. So they're not, and we became friends simply because we just knew each other on site. Okay. Time passes. All right. Now you don't have that. You see what I'm saying? Now kids they're going up to the park. They trying to figure out what they can do to make a buck. All right. Daytime burglary goes up. At the same time, you're getting a negative jacket on the city. And the people who are running the city have really no idea, who they don't really know what's going on. I wrote an article for KCET. It's at kce.org. If you go to kce.org and you put my name, Robert Lee Johnson, in the search engine, there's an article that'll pop up that's called "When Compton Was the Citadel of Black Political Power." But the links that are embedded in that article, one of them is a link to an episode of Tony Brown's journal that he did on the city of Compton.
Okay.
And in that link, in that interview, he's interviewing Douglas Dollarhigh.
Okay.
And they were asking him about why so many empty houses. And you could see he was a little perplexed about that himself.
Okay.
Because people they didn't really understand just what was going on, in the city, what was happening, because they weren't expecting the opposition that they got.
They played that dirty.
No, they didn't. They just figured if I do the job correctly, if I keep myself clean from corruption, I should be straight. And most of them didn't realize they were people who were actually plotting for them to fail.
We got 30 seconds left, Doc. We got 30 seconds left.
Okay. So basically what I want to say is we have a great history. We need to dig into it. We need to talk to some of our elders who were there and understand how you turn a black middle class city like Compton into a so-called ghetto.
All right.
How did that happen?
You're live
all on its own.
You're live with Lonzo, the Godfather of West Coast hip hop, and a reporter for the Compton Entertainment Channel. Robert, that's part 2. We're gonna come back with part 3. Y'all stay tuned. Download the app. Follow us on Facebook and also on YouTube. And also download the Compton Entertainment Chamber app and also the Compton Entertainment Channel app. Stay aboard of what's going on here at the CPT. I see my chat room is on fire. Much love, Kelvin Dean Fowler. We know who you are. Thank you very much. We're going to bring you back on the show as well. In the meantime, folks, Robert, we're out of here. Thank you very much, Robert. I appreciate your information. I'm quite sure Compton does too. Peace.